totally live, and this is that awkward moment where
you never know if we're live. Are we actually live? Is it live or is
yeah,
it
exactly. All right, I think we're live now. Awesome. Welcome back to the After Action Project. The views and opinions expressed in this podcast are those of the individual co-hosts and do not reflect the official policy or position of the Firearms Radio Network and or their employers. Viewer discretion is advised. This is especially true on live shows. So tonight we have Spencer Keeper from Keepers Concealment. We're going to be talking about his AIWB Skills Course. The student for y'all tonight is going to be Scott of modernsamuraiproject.com. Be sure to hit that subscribe button down below, as well as the little alarm bell thingamajig. That way y'all can get the notifications anytime that we go live. And then, as always, feel free to share this out with your friends and family. So, Scott, talk to us a little bit about the AIWB Skills Course, and what is your, well, before we get into that, what's your background with firearms, Scott?
So a little bit about my background in general. So I'm a lifelong martial artist, Taekwondo, wrestling, mostly Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I live in Northern Virginia, so the free part of Metro DC, and it's impossible to train in martial arts out here without meeting, other LE military secret squirrel guys. And just through that affiliation with them, doing some private lessons there, my buddy Al DeLeon, who works for the State Department, started giving me some shooting lessons. Got into it, hurt my knee, eventually had to get a knee replacement, and the only thing I could do to punch the man card was go shoot, right? And then from there, it just became another passion, another martial art for me. So non-mil, non-LEO, my forte is teaching people how to be fast and accurate with red dot pistols. So
awesome. We're looking forward to hopefully having you and one of your students on in the future.
Cool.
Hey, Spencer, talk to us a little bit about the AIWB Skills Course and what students need to bring with them to that class.
So the AIWB Skills class is it's more about how to live with a gun, every day from appendix. It has a lot to do with choosing a holster. A holster is very specific for AIWB, or at least it needs to be. And I spend quite a bit of time, going over holster theory, concealment theory, how to adjust a holster, what to look for in a holster when you're looking at buying one, etc. Then I, of course, I spend a lot of time on safety. AIWB has such a bad rap of, you're going to shoot your blank off, or you're going to shoot yourself in your femoral or whatever, So I spend a lot of time kind of debunking those myths, if you will, and then talking about how that strong side carry can be just as dangerous, or if not even more dangerous than appendix when you're reholstering. And I even show folks, how to reholster strong side in my thoughts correctly or safely, where you're not flagging yourself with a gun. Then we go over, I'm a handgun instructor, I'm pretty decent running a handgun. So I can't not help but to talk about the fundamentals of shooting a handgun and how to shoot them well. Talk about garment clearance from appendix, both, two-handed, strong-handed, support hand only. We do support hand, we do strong hand only reloads and support hand only reloads. I don't talk a whole lot about, two-handed reloads during that, because most people have that as a fairly good skill set already. And that's not really the focus of the class. I do more of that in the essential handgun skills class. And then from what do they need to bring? good modern semi-auto or revolver. I've had some guys run it with a revolver. That's fine. You know, I prefer to have them run with a semi-auto just so they're not, you know, kind of holding the line up, loading so much. You know, an appendix holster, or, you know, get in touch with me. I'll have a few loaners there if somebody wants to, you know, they're like, hey, I don't know anything about this. I want to try it, etc. You know, I typically have some loaner holsters for Glocks and M&Ps, you know, kind of the more common guns, maybe, you know, maybe a Beretta, PX4 compact carry or something like that. I might have a few extra holsters because I bring a big bag of holsters and, you know, literally go through each one and start talking about, you know, what I see good and bad in all of it. And really the lecture part of the class has been like hands down about the favorite thing most people talk about, you know, because they get a lot of information on how to look at a holster. And, you know, the most common feedback that I get is, you know, man, if I'd have taken this class 3 or 4 years ago, I'd have saved myself $1,000 in holster bills, you know. So, but, you know, you're an iPro, about 100 rounds, 350 rounds of ammo, etc. So basically, you know, normal stuff for a class. You know, the only caveat there is if you can't follow the safe reholstering procedures that I talk about, then I might, you know, be like pulling you off and having you go take a break, or you know, maybe even have you just unload and run the rest of the class dry, etc.
So I have a follow up for Scott, who is apparently his nickname Jedi. You know, Spencer mentioned a little bit about the lecture portion of the class. Can you tell us about the balance between the lecture portion, practicals, you know, how much range time, if there's any kind of thing? Talk to our audience about kind of the flow of the class between lecture, practicals, and hands-on the range stuff.
Yeah, I would be happy to, mostly because Spencer doesn't like talking about himself. So, so let me do that for you, bro. All right. So, and that being said, the class was a while ago. I'm going on 2 years ago when I took it. Hopefully, I'm going to be getting a refresher here. But I would tell you, it's exactly what Spencer said. But the flow of it's very important, right? Because most of the students that first come to his class, they're one of two people, right? They are people that everybody's committed to AIWB, right? But there are the newbies who kind of know why they like it, but then, you know, they're falling prey to the internets, right? And all of the experts out there. And then there's other guys who know why they like it. Maybe they haven't put words to it, but they definitely want to get that performance aspect out of it, or they have certain manipulation problems, right? Like the balance of speed out of the holster versus concealment. And Spencer does a great job addressing all of those people before they even ask the question. I always say that's the great thing about an instructor, is one that can answer your questions before you ask them, because they've seen your circus before, right? He does it in a very non-soliciting way, right? There are probably, as far as appendix holsters, there are really only 3 out there that I think are really, maybe 4 that are worth anything. I won't name their names. One I will, because he's my buddy. He's a buddy of Spencer's too. John Hotman at Filster. There's guys like Tom Kelly over at Darkstar, and Spencer does a great job of not selling his individual holster, even though by far, if it is a non-weapon light bearing holster you seek, it is the fastest AIW holster out there. Period. Right. Anyway, so I'm pitching you, brother, because I know you won't. Anyway, for the performance guys out there, right? He talks about ride height. He talks about the way his holster is designed versus other holsters that utilize, say, a claw or a hook pattern, and the utility of the wedge attachment to a holster, which I think you innovated that. I mean, I think you were the first one to put that on a production holster, if I'm, much imitated as a standard there. So I think that's pretty much at the lecture part. You go over the safety part. You go over how to safely reholster. I believe, if memory serves me right, you go over that with a blue gun in the class, so that everyone's nice and comfortable, and you can kind of go over and you kind of crush all those myths without going too far ahead. And the range time supports all of that. I believe that he does from what I remember, you do his standard at the beginning. I'll let him share what that standard is. And then he goes through a number of drills from how you draw, where you draw, how he wears his belt, what kind of belt he wears, what kind of undershirt, if he wears an undershirt, and various different ways to understand the balance between concealment and performance. And all the drills support that, culminating in doing that beginning drill again to see if there was any improvement. And then I think our class got short a little bit by rain, but I think your final standard is a man on man 7-yard drill, just to see who can be the best Ricky Bobby out there, if I'm not mistaken. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, I think that definitely answered the question. How just really quick, Spencer, how long is the lecture and how long is the time?
So the lecture is about 3 hours, from basically kind of from start to finish ish, depending on questions and rabbit holes and stuff like that we get, and and then we go shoot. I've changed the class up a little bit since Scott has taken it. I don't start with a cold standard anymore because like when Scott took the class, most of the people were there, kind of like Scott was saying, they either, kind of new to AIWB, but they've been doing it a while, or they had been doing AIWB a while. Basically, the comfort level was pretty high across the classes. What I'm finding now is I'm getting a lot of people in the class that have never, ever carried AIWB. And they are literally showing up with, a holster that they bought saying, hey, I've never done this before, help me with it. So I've kind of changed the class format up a little bit. We start slower. Once we get through the lecture portion, we start kind of slower on the moment. We start with some dry work. Then we start basically building on those skills. We start, how to draw the gun from the holster, how to clear the cover garment, etc. We do, several iterations of that, and then we start to shoot. We'll end up shooting my standard test, the keeper test, which is 3 rounds to a 3x5 card at 7 yards from concealment. And then at the end of the class, instead of having a man versus man thing, I have adopted the 9-round close speed test. And I've done that because it kind of does the same thing as the the man versus man deal, because you are I give away two of my Keepers Concealment top shooter hats during the class, one for the fastest time on my test, and then one for the fastest time on the 9-round close speed test. We do quite a bit of target transition work in the class as well. And so that's kind of why I do that 9-round close speed drill at the end to kind of push people, way out of their comfort zone as far as drawing the gun fast and moving the gun fast and making fast, accurate hits. So, and it's a lot of fun. Trust me, it's the most fun you'll have with a handgun and 9 rounds of ammo.
That sounds. So what is that 9? I have a couple questions. I want to jump back to Scott, but first, what's that 9-round? You said it was a 9-round close speed.
Yes. So I got that from my buddy Ernest Langdon, and basically you have 3, let's say IDPA targets or pistoltraining.com targets, etc. You have 3 of those stacked right on top of each other, if you will, side to side. You're about 1.5 yards-ish from the targets. Basically, you draw and shoot 1 round to each body going one way, say left to right, 1 round to each body going right to left, and then transition to the head box and shoot 1 round in each head box.
Sounds like fun.
It's it's basically a draw, 7 transitions in 1 split. So you really you've got to draw the gun fast, you've got to move the gun fast, and you've got to be accurate, because if you miss 1 round, you're done. So it's a 100% accuracy drill as well. So, and it's a lot of fun. So.
Mm-hmm.
Scott, so were you carrying appendix before taking this class, or is this something were you one of those students that was kind of wrestling with the idea of whether or not you should carry appendix and then decided to take this class?
I had probably been carrying for about a year or so appendix, maybe even longer than that. But appendix was kind of like the so you have the circles, right? When you walk into a place and you see a dude with plaid and khakis on and that little bump, right? And you're like, yeah, buddy, right? AIWB is that same circle, but even smaller. And you didn't have a lot of comparative statistics, like what really is performance from that AIWB. And that's really why I came to the class. I think Spencer and I were kind of, Facebook friendly, and when I heard he was going to be in the area, that's why I took it. So I was sold on it, but I wanted a metric to see if how my practice was going. And really at the time, plenty of guys taught some AIWB stuff in their class. Ernest Langdon, Steve Fisher, Aaron Cowan at the time, but nobody concentrated on that skill, right? And the thing that I always notice, whether you're going for practicing the fast drill or build drills or any other sort of drill that came from the draw from a concealed position, where everybody just falls apart is at the very beginning on the draw from AIWB or whatever, but nobody really practiced that. Everybody was worried about the hole at the end, not getting the gun out from the position. So that's why I took it. So.
Nice. Judson, I think you had a question.
Yeah, I actually had a question, but I'm gonna defer over to some listener questions because they're more important than I am. The first one should be a fairly simple answer, then I'll ask the more complicated one. Nathan Peoples, one of our buddies over at the We Like Shooting Patreon page, asked, this is to you, Spencer, by the way, what is the biggest mistake Spencer sees people make with appendix inside the waist?
The biggest mistake I see is people reholstering incorrectly. They're not bowing their hips forward. They're muzzling themselves at some point in time, or they're getting the gun right to the holster and shoving the gun in, kind of in an empathetic, hard-suited shove of the gun into the holster. And I talk about this, in my class, and I wished I would have kept the newspaper. I walked into my local Starbucks one day, Sunday morning, and here's the Sunday Oklahoman on there, and the top page, front page, top of the fold said helicopter crash. Pilot says everything was fine until it wasn't. Well, that's the way it's going to be. Everything's going to be fine until it's not. Unless you would safe reholstering techniques, literally every single time. So that's the thing I see them doing wrong the most. Or at least that's what I am the most concerned with. I see some of the guys having, the wrong holster, the wrong setup, it prints badly, etc. I see that commonly, but I'm way less in the safety aspect of it. I'm way less concerned about that as I am them reholstering.
Cool. So the next question I have is from Life's a Bench. And I know exactly who that is, but I'm not going to say his name because he's some sort of alias for some reason. He may be in the air flying. So his question is, and he words it as a statement, but I've heard Spencer talk up double action, single action triggers, and I don't understand the disparity between one size fits all striker handgun. I would love to hear his thoughts.
I'm not quite sure what he's asking there, honestly. I have a passionate love, if you will, that started about a year ago, and it's all thanks to my good friend Ernest Langdon. Ernest is a big advocate of the DASA guns, and you can go back even a little farther than that. One of my mentors, if you will, or good friends, and guy I learned a lot from was Todd Lewis Green. He was a big advocate of the DASA guns. And so, I've hosted Ernest, besides instructing, I host quite a few instructors each year. I've been doing that for over a decade now. And so I've hosted Ernest the last 3 years or 4 years in a row. And so last year at his class, I sat down and shot his PX4 compact carry. And I'm like, okay, this is finally starting to make sense. The gun it's amazing to shoot. It's got a buttery smooth DA pull and then an amazing single action pull. So I started, kind of down that road. I think the DASA guns have a lot going for them, especially the Berettas, the 92. I've got a full house custom 92A1 on right now that he did for me, appendix, of course, in one of our holsters. So the fact that, and I brought one in here with me today. This is a 92A1 that I've got a cool fire trainer on. This is what I use to dry practice with. But like one of the biggest benefits, I believe, to the DASA guns is the fact that when you go to reholster the gun, you can block the hammer with your thumb, and there's no way you can see how much pressure, how much pressure I'm putting on right there. You can see the indentation there in my thumb, maybe. So basically what I'm saying is if something was to get into the trigger, during the reholster of that, I'm going to know about it. Where, if you've got a striker fired gun and you're pushing it in there and something gets in there, and especially if you're, one of the guys that just like to kind of push or throw it in the holster, the first time you're going to know about it is when it makes a loud noise. Now, having said all that about the DASA gun, I carried a Glock appendix for a long time. a long number of years, and there might be a day that I go back to it. I'm not going to leave that. One of the things I would tell you with the Glock, I would encourage you. Yeah, there we go. I would encourage you to use a striker control device with the Glock. But you know, again, if you use good safe reholstering practices, you're good to go on that. There it is. So that's. I kind of hope that answers his question because I'm not quite sure really exactly what he was asking by that.
Can I jump in there? Because I mean, I hear that question a lot from when guys don't want to ask, striker guys don't want to ask double action guys why, right? My answer always to that is like, look, there is a reason why in the production division of USPSA there are Tanfos, Berettas, and CZs, right? Because yes, while a striker fire gun may have a consistent single pull every single time, if you get your double action trigger pull squared away, you are left with an amazing 3 to 1 pound trigger that is reliable and safe. So, why don't I shoot a DASA gun? I got too much time and money and holsters and mags and all that other stuff. And Agency Arms, my sponsors, doesn't work on double action guns. So that's why.
Yeah, so Jedi and Spencer, I really quick, more of a statement than anything to continue the conversation. But I asked my shooting coach about, I don't know, it's probably 4 or 5 years ago. I asked him, how do I become the best shooter I can become? And he told me to get a SIG 226 with a short trigger reset and shoot that for 20,000 rounds. And I did. Actually, I shot it for 35,000 rounds over the course of about 3 or 4 years. And in the process of me doing that, I asked him why. And he said, because if you can master the double action, single action, you can shoot anything. And to this day, I go back to that, and I still love the SIG 226 more than any other gun out there. I actually carry a 239, which is kind of a condensed version of the 226. So, I mean, it's just to the point that, TDAs are awesome guns if you can learn to shoot them.
Yes.
So that was my statement. I don't want to go down that rabbit hole because we're not talking about guns. We're talking about your class. The question I had for you, Spencer, was, as we talked about in the pre-show, I carry at about 3:30, 4 o'clock back here because that's typically where my range gun is anyway. What would you tell somebody that has tried to carry appendix? And again, I'm 6'3", I weigh 155 pounds. So it doesn't really work well for me with my body type. I mean, how do you address that? Somebody that wants to come and learn how to carry appendix, is it something that it's just?
All right. So let's start with a few basics. One, when it comes to carrying a gun inside the waistband, it gets very dependent on the holster. It's even more so dependent on the holster when you move it to appendix. So you've gotta think about, for most people, the gun / holster has to ride somewhere between the crease in the leg and the important parts in the middle. Okay, so in that dead space, if you will, that's where the holster and gun combo needs to sit for most people. Or you need a high enough waisted pants to get everything up above all the important stuff, like with some of the kind of combo holsters that are out there, that have it's a holster and magazine pouch all in one unit. So that you've got to kind of start with right there, right? Then you've got to find a holster that, two of the things I think you really need to have an appendix holster is ride height and cant adjustment, so that you can adjust the cant of the gun For mine, I need to have quite a bit of forward cant on it. And then I want to be able to adjust the ride height to get it, to where I like it. I like to have mine adjusted to where I got just a little bit of clearance getting onto the grip of the gun, where I can get a full grip on the gun in the holster, but not too high either, because then that creates its own set of problems for some people. So the shape of the holster is very important. For a guy like you, that's that tall and that light, you've probably got pretty narrow waisted hips. So you're gonna need to look for a holster that's very narrow, meaning that there's not much around the width of the holster. Okay, so that way it will fit in that crease. Guys that are maybe smaller, shorter, that's kind of their thing too. Well, then,
So what gun? I mean, so right now I'm carrying a 239. In the winter time, I typically carry a 320 compact.
Right.
Just because it's bigger and I can hold more, ammos in it. So as far as what you're talking about at the appendix position for somebody like me, with that, I'm the captain of Team Skinny. What type of firearm are you looking at? I mean, are we talking 365 size? Are we talking, can you do the Glock 19 kind of thing? And with somebody like me, what's your experience when it comes to the firearm itself?
What I'm going to tell you there is, at some point in time, it is highly clothing specific. Okay, I know guys that are basically your size, a little maybe not quite as tall, but that are walking around with a Glock 34 on and conceal it just fine. And I know quite a few women that are a few women that are way smaller than you that carry a Glock 19 with a weapon mounted light on it and make it work. So it's very dependent on several things. It's kind of a complex equation. It's very dependent on several things. One, it's dependent on the holster. Two, it's dependent on the belt. For a belt, you want an infinitely adjustable belt. I am a big fan of the Wilderness Frequent Flyer. This new Wraith belt that's out is a pretty good belt. It doesn't need to be as rigid as most people think. The more flexible it is, the better, actually. To a point. Belt tension is key with appendix. One of the things I do in my class is I'll do a demo where I will loosen, basically show everybody, hey, look, this is my carry gun, this is my Beretta 92, blah, 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 and I'll have it under a piece of Under Armour like I've got on right now because I'm always freaking hot. And, I'll say, look, it's, the gun's completely concealed, everybody will, agree to that. And then I will take my belt and I will loosen it by 1 finger width. So roughly half to, 5/8 of an inch, whatever my finger is. And at that point in time, you will start to see the gun print just a little bit. So belt tension is another one. Your ride height of your pants is another big part of the equation. If you're wearing very low-waisted pants, you are going to have a very hard time making appendix work because basically you've just taken all the space for the gun and holster to be away. Mm-hmm. Then, once you've kind of done that, then you got to look at shirt fit. If you're a Paul Sharp and wearing a medium shirt, it's just not going to work.
Right.
So, So when people say, "Oh, well, I've tried appendix and it doesn't work," what that typically says to me is they've taken a holster that was meant for strong side carry, put it up front in the appendix position, and went to sit down and said, "Oh my God, that doesn't work." And you're right, it doesn't. It's again, it's very specific, and what I would tell you is look for that narrow, very narrow holster. And when I'm talking about narrow, what I'm talking about is that there not be any more width on the frame and slide here than what really needs to be there.
So it's not like what you're talking about is
that. So that's like, that's not going to be comfortable for anybody in the appendix position.
right.
Way too wide. You've got to think about where the holster has to sit. Well, if it won't fit in that area, well, then it's not going to be comfortable.
Yeah.
We had an email just the other day or week ago or I don't know. And the guy was like, hey, I've got 2 of your holsters and I just absolutely love one of them. It's comfortable and it conceals well and blah, blah, blah. He said, the other one hurts when I sit. It pokes me in my leg. I'm like, well, adjust a cant on it. And the guy's like, oh, you can do that? And I'm like, you didn't read the instructions. And so, he sends an email back a week later and he goes, oh, dude, it's perfect. I love it. So that having that ability to adjust a cant so that it fits in that spot is very key. I sat down one time, and I don't mean to preach on this too long, but I sat down one time and I wrote out like everything that affected, comfortably carrying a holster appendix, and it was like 12 or 14 things. So it can be kind of a big equation. But as far as, gun, like I was saying, dude, you could probably carry your SIG 226 or a 229, your 320 up there with no problem.
Yep. Can I add something to that real quick, if you don't mind?
Absolutely.
So, but people ask me about the carrying position, and the first thing I say is like, look, the god of appendix carry does not pay me, doesn't pay Spencer, yada, yada. But I think if you're truly going to think about making the switch, you have to have that philosophical reason why, right? And it cannot be based on feelings. It has to be based on performance, period, right? So if you guys look up, if you guys don't know who Cecil Birch is, follow him, Immediate Action Concepts, right? He is a 2nd degree black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Awesome guy. He has a video, and one of the reasons why I jumped to AIWB so quick was because of this concept. In fighting martial arts, high-level martial arts anyway, especially jiu-jitsu, there's a concept of whoever controls the inside wins the fight, okay? Because structurally, you are stronger and faster from here or from here, right? Because you're in the inside, you're controlling your core, and it's easier to defend and things of that nature. And let's face it, we do a lot more things here than we do out here, right? And here, you are structurally weaker. And because you are structurally weaker, you are slower. So it doesn't matter what philosophy you have. And again, I don't care how a person carries, as long as you carry, God bless you, right? But I don't care how you're doing it. The most efficient, fastest guy from 3 o'clock is always going to be slower than the guy coming from appendix, because it's a hinge versus a shoulder hinge and out, right?
So just for the people that are listening and not watching, Scott, can you? I don't want to put words in your mouth. So can you you actually describe the here versus here to our listeners?
Sure. Yeah. If I can visually describe that. So if imagine if someone were to pick up well, I probably shouldn't use the kettlebell analogy because that doesn't. So just imagine picking up any weight, right? If you were to walk any great distance with a weight two-handed, right, you would hold it close to your chest, right, to maximize your entire body's structure in order to hold it, okay? And then from there, you could curl just using a hinge. Now take that same weight and kind of chicken wing it out, bend at the elbow, and hold it out to the same position it takes for you to where you be going for your gun in 3 o'clock, and you will markedly feel weaker. And because you are markedly weaker, you are going to be markedly slower. Testing it out, my first big epiphany is because I used to carry 3 o'clock, and I took a Matchy quiz class of Victory First, and he goes, "Hey, just try appendix for me. I know you got the holster, so just give it a whirl." And we were doing one-shot draws, and my 3 o'clock draw from concealment was like butter. It was smooth. My appendix draw was janky as all get out, and it was half a second faster.
Wow.
Okay, that is a mechanical advantage when you are not smooth and you're still that much faster. So
that's incredible.
Yep.
So to kind of back up what Scott was saying, if I can jump in, I know Scott has trained with him as well as I have. My good friend Gabe White of Gabe White Shooting. Gabe's probably one of the fastest known guys from appendix in the world. I believe he is a grandmaster now in USPSA, competing from concealment from appendix.
He's close. He's still master. He's close though.
Oh, is he? Okay.
Yeah.
I've heard both sides. I didn't know for sure.
We'll look it up right now.
Go
ahead.
So where I'm going with this is, in Gabe's classes, he gives away pins for performance on a series of drills that he's picked out. And those pins are either dart pins, light pins, or what he calls turbo pins. There's 6 turbo pins, I believe, in existence right now. I have one of those. And everybody that has got one of those has done it from appendix.
Yep. And
I am especially when it's going to be done from concealment. There might be somebody that does it from a strong side, open race rig, but I don't think as tight as those times are that you will find somebody that will do it from strong side concealment, especially with a closed front cover.
Yeah. So to confirm, Gabe is 91%. To be grandmaster, you need to be 95%. But understand those standards are made from open drop race holsters, but the only thing it covers is the trigger guard. And he's going up against major power factor 40 and 45 with better scoring guns. And he's doing it with a 34 9mm. So
yeah, he competes with his carry gear, correct? And 91%, that basically means he performs better than 91% of the other competitors.
No. What that means is that he performs those specific classifiers 91% of the best in the world.
Ah, okay.
So
he's pretty freaking fast.
Yep.
Yeah, from concealment.
Yeah, from concealment. Yep.
Yeah. So
and reloads. Reloads are for concealment too. So.
And that's USPSA that he competes in?
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah,
that's incredible.
Judson, so look at the Keeper holster with the wedge on there, man. I'm pretty sure that would get you where you need to be. Getting back to the AIWB Skills Course, what are the prerequisites for that class, Spencer? If you're looking at somebody who they're a shooter, obviously, handgun owner, what do they have to know to take that class? And is there a certain level of proficiency that they need to be?
I would at least like them to have maybe had, like a basic handgun skills class, or at least understand you know, how to load their magazines, how to load the gun, how to, you know, obviously safety, you know, et cetera. You know, I don't want, you know, hey, this is the first time I've ever shot a handgun, kind of to show up and say, and actually I had that in my Albuquerque class here a few years ago, and kudos to the girl that was there. She actually made it all the way through the class and made great improvement. And you know, of course, that's.
Can I interject?
I think you know, Scott would back it up that, you know, I am a passionate instructor. Having the students get a technique and perform better than they were, you know, is why I'm there. You know, kind of like the holster company. You know, I wished that I made money off the holster company. I've had exactly 2 checks from it for the entire time that we've done it, and I would make way more money being a door greeter at Walmart than working on holsters. But you know, we do it so people will have that tool to carry a gun and defend their lives with. And you know, I'm very passionate about that.
So Spencer, I've got a listener question from YouTube. Impending Doom wants to know where you're located, and my question is, do you also travel with your class?
I am located, I'm based in Moore, Oklahoma. I travel kind of all over the country. I think I'm in, I'd have to go back and count. I think I'm in like 8 or 10 states this year or better. You can, as far as that goes, you can find, you know, holsters and my classes at keepersconcealment.com. They're all kind of co-mingled there on that website.
Awesome.
Hey, Scott, who do you think the AIWB course or skills class is for, man? Who should take that class?
Everybody. So, I mean, honestly, like I said before, it pretty much appeals to everybody. Whether you are exploring the benefits of AIWB because, you know, you see every hotshot on Instagram shooting that way. You know, not because of IG, but I remember the class I took, Brett Harnish of Green Ops was there, and he was a lifelong 3 o'clock guy, former Border Patrol, yada, yada. And, you know, he just kept on seeing guys beat his times with AIWB. That's why he came out and Spencer converted him, right? For other guys that are committed to AIWB, it's a performance class. I'm a performance guy, right? I mean, you know, as concealed carriers, as armed, you know, people, we get our fair share of mindset, right? You know, adapt and overcome, yada, yada, yada. I got it. Nobody tells you how to get the holster out of the gun in an efficient, fast manner to lay down that mindset, right? Spencer has one of the best classes, if not one of the few classes, that really concentrates on the term that I call micro drills, breaking everything down from removing cover to grabbing your gun to marrying and presenting and prepping. I'll be honest with you, the only one that goes that deep into it, other than Spencer, Steve Fisher, Matt Jaquise, that goes that deep into AIWB, I think that's about it. But those guys touch upon it. Spencer has a whole day on it, from standing, from sitting, from behind a table, from all that stuff. So if you just want to get your toe into it to validate why you think it's stupid, it's a great class, and there's lots of shooting, right? If you're a guy that wants to get better at it, it's a great class. If you want to get a glimpse of what next level performance shooting AIWB can bring, it's a great class. So
it's interesting you mentioned the Steve Fisher. And Jeremy, correct me if I'm wrong. Isn't Steve Fisher the guy that teaches Rangemaster?
No, that's Tom Gibbons.
Oh, that's Tom Gibbons. Sorry.
That's Tom Gibbons.
Okay, so it's not interesting you mentioned that, but I have a listener question for Spencer anyway. Mr. Carter asks, I've recently heard John Correa mention that he believed the Rangemaster certification was more practical than other certs. I would love to hear Spencer's thoughts.
Oh, so, Tom and Lynn Gibbons are good friends and mentors. Tom has been a big mentor for me and a good friend. I've hosted them a lot. I've taken a bunch of classes from Tom, and I would tell you that his 3-day instructor class is back when I took it, which was like in 2009, I believe. Was probably one of the most difficult classes I've ever taken. It truly is an outstanding class. So basically, in that class, Tom will assign you a block to teach, an item to teach on. He'll assign you into groups. So your group will have to come up with a lesson plan, a classroom aid. Then you'll have to do a presentation. You have to take a very hard written test, and then you have to shoot, and you have to pass the FBI instructor qual, which is the FBI instructor, the FBI qualification at 90%, I believe, or better. Tom's test at 90% or better. Those are no joke. Those are some.
If I remember correctly, that FBI qualification has several rounds at 25 that you have to hit. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's I think it's 60 rounds now. They in 2013, I believe, they changed it up a little. They added more stuff at that 7-yard mark or inside like 3 to 7.
Right.
And then they actually took out the prone position. Thank God.
Yeah.
They literally went and looked all the FBI shootings that they've had. No one ever shot anybody from prone. So they took that out. Yeah. So, but yeah, you've got to pass those, and then if you want to take it a step farther, he has a 2-day, advanced instructor class. That's very good as well. He goes pretty deep into medical on that one, and then the shooting gets even more intense on that. So
nice.
Yeah, I'm a huge range master Tom Gibbons fan. I taught for the last 7 or 8 years at the Range Master Tactical Conference. If you're not familiar with that, you should really think about going. It's 3 days of 25 to 30 instructors teaching 2 to 4 hour blocks of everything from how to take care of your pet in an emergency to appendix skills, to shotgun skills, to lectures, etc. So well worth the money.
Wow.
Scott, so back to the class. What do you think what was your biggest takeaway from that class?
Ooh, it's gonna sound funny, and you got to remember, I don't want to use the word advanced, right? But at that point, I was probably shooting anywhere from 1,500 to 2,000 rounds a month. I was just getting into competition and stuff like that. So although it's going to sound weird, I was more interested in Spencer's his kind of setup, his loadout, and how he did things, right? I was interested on how he gripped the pistol, and he and I have had conversations about that. He wears a Under Armour rash guard that doesn't pop out every single time he grabs his gun. I was interested in how he sets up the wedge on his holster. And his POI and the way he taught and the way he explained things and students' reaction. if that makes sense.
Yeah, it totally makes sense. Those are kind of some of the things that I look for when I go out and train as well, in addition to what we're talking about with handguns.
Right. I always say that it's interesting. I always say this about Gabe White, but when I really think about it, Spencer's kind of the same way in that they're comic strip characters. They wear the same clothes every single day, just different colors, right? And there's a method behind that madness, and it's consistency that yields performance.
I'm the same. I mean, the exact same way.
Yeah.
Spencer, what are some of the challenges that students have coming into that class, and some of the things that I guess some misconceptions that some folks have that are kind of distilled and worked through during your class?
Well, kind of like we talked about, one of the biggest ones is my gosh, I'm gonna shoot my junk off, or I'm gonna get shot in the femoral artery, or et cetera. So I kind of talk about that, and talk about how the gun, once the gun's in the holster, theoretically it should be essentially inert. We've had a case here recently where that wasn't the case, but from what I understand, there was something actually in the holster. So if you don't reholster correctly, or if you get something in the holster and you're not aware of it, and the gun goes off, it doesn't matter where it is on your body, right? Whether it's appendix or strong side or small of the back or whatever, at some point in time, the muzzle is pointing at your body, and so I equate being shot is the same. If you get shot, it still counts. So, it's not like I've just been shot a little bit. And bullets do weird thing. I wished I'd have kept it now. There was an article and some x-rays and stuff from a dude that shot himself in the butt, reholstering strong side with a 230 grain hardball 45.
Yeah.
They found the bullet in the left lung up above his heart. So, bullets do what they want to. So that's kind of one of them, kind of getting them over that hump mentally, because it is an adjustment. I will tell you that, from the moment that I decided I was going to try and see if I could make it work, which is an interesting story. Maybe we can talk about that some other time. That when I started carrying appendix, I was okay. There is a little bit of getting used to there. So that's kind of the main thing, and then it's probably the reholstering procedure, trying to get that down, accurately. That's kind of one of the things I see guys struggle with a little bit. They'll get really close to it, but they'll still muzzle themselves a little bit, et cetera. Or they'll be really good at bowing their hips out, and kind of doing what I call the keeper squat, kind of a little inverted squat to holster the gun carefully. And they'll do that for 5 or 10 times, and then they'll get lenient, which we all do. And I'll have to remind them, hey. And I've even found myself getting a little lenient on that when I'm dry practicing and I know the gun's dry, but they'll kind of get lenient on that, and I kind of have to coach them back to doing that right again. So.
Oh, excuse me. I just my chair just went out on me.
Hey, edit that part out.
Yeah. I'll make a little note of that myself here. So Scott, what do you think? What would, if you could go back in time, what's the advice that you would give yourself the day before, a couple days before taking this class to better prepare you for it?
Man, let's see. I should probably ask Spencer on that if I screwed up anything. What would I better prepared for this class?
Or for somebody who's taken a class, not necessarily yourself, but if I'm going to go take that class, what's some advice that you have for me getting ready to take it?
Yeah, I would say have an open mind, right? Because Spencer addresses a lot of misconceptions, myths, and if you are stuck on one thing, you're going to miss a lot. So it's drinking from a fire hose, but it's an amazing fire hose full of rainbows and unicorns. Yeah, just keep an open mind and understand that you're gonna have a lot of information at for you, and ask what questions. I think that was probably the biggest thing. I was surprised at maybe I'm not remembering this right, Spencer, but I was surprised at the lack of questions. Go ahead.
It's quite common for me to get done with my lecture and be like, okay, does anybody have questions on anything, that I've covered to this point? And everybody just be sitting there with their, basically with their eyes wide open and their mouth aghast, no. And I don't know if it's, that kind of drinking from a fire hose, they're a little, overloaded with information, or if I've covered everything. And, typically everybody says, well, you've covered all the questions I was going to ask. So,
and then some. So that's why, and I think that's half true, half not, right? I don't think they come in knowing what to expect. But for example, if your holster is uncomfortable, ask why it's uncomfortable. If you can measure your one-shot draw from concealment with a sundial, you need to ask why. Right? If your grip is crap, you need to ask why. If you are paranoid about anything printing whatsoever, so basically the front strap of your gun is below your belt line, ask, is that important? If you've broken your middle finger because you're jamming it into your belt buckle because the thing's so low in there and you're wondering why it's hitting into your nethers all the time, ask why, because Spencer does have the answers. So.
Nice. We have I think one or two more listener questions that I want to run by you guys before we wrap it up. Ryan wants to know, what are some methods for clearing your shirt when drawing from appendix?
Well, there's what I prefer is I'm going to if I have two hands, I'm going to use two hands to draw the gun. Okay. I know there's some instructors out there that teach, different stuff. I respect their opinion. But if I have two hands, I'm going to use two hands to draw the gun. For me, I'm going to reach down with my support hand about center line, grab the bottom edge of my cover garment, and basically just bend at the elbow. That will actually take the cover garment away from the body and then back to it. I'll get a full grip on the gun in the holster as soon as the cover garment is cleared. So I'm doing that basically, simultaneously. As soon as I get a grip, the gun's coming out. I'm going to bring the gun straight up underneath my dominant eye, whichever eye that may be for you. I'm going to drop the cover garment as soon as the gun gets higher than my support hand. And then I'm going to mate the two in what my buddy Mike Seeklander talks about, a Judy chop. So
yeah.
You don't know what a Judy chop is, right? But I'm going to mate with a little Judy chop. I'm going to wrap the gun up with both hands as I'm pushing the gun out to the target. And basically, I like to bring the gun up high and push the front side out basically on the eye target line. That's my preferred way of doing it. And I have, it's probably not worth getting into here, but I have the whys, and I talk about the whys that I have that way in the class. The other way that I think is quite what's the word I'm looking for? Just as adequate is grabbing the cover garment someplace, center line, like maybe on your belly button, or maybe even someplace hard, like on the gun itself, and then lifting that, getting a full grip on the gun, bringing it out. And again, you really want to make sure that you get the gun above the cover garment. You don't need to lift the cover garment too high. Then again, your hands are going to meet, and you're going to push the gun out either on an escalator ride, or like I like to do, kind of straight to the target. Although I will admit mine is more of a J than it is a true straight line. And the reason I keep saying you want to get the gun higher than the cover garment when you clear that is so that you've got, well, a couple things. One, economy of motion. So now my support hand only has to drop the cover garment and mate with my strong hand and the gun. The other reason, if you get the cover garment, and I've seen guys, talk about this. Oh, you want to, clear the cover garment. They'll clear the cover garment clear up to their
shoulder. Yeah.
Shoulder. Well, then they draw the gun, and then they drop the cover garment, and either two things happen. One, they muzzle themselves on the way back down to meet their hands, and then they don't get a good grip on the gun anyhow. Or they do that and they flag their thumb up, and the cover garment drapes over the top of their thumb, and they go to push the gun out, and now they got the shirt hung up on their thumb, and that's really bad on the good bad scale.
Yep.
So
there's also, do you want to go to a high thoracic type of holding position? You don't teach that, do you, Spencer? That's not really your.
We do I do a drill where, and I think we did it where, I have guys put their hands in various locations to draw the gun from. I kind of do that to basically prove a point that your hands will always be in the same location every single time, no matter where they are, and that's one arm length away, right? So, basically, if your hands are up, I'm going to do the same presentation. I'm going to come down center line and get the gun, and then press it out on that eye target line. But I have guys draw the gun from different hand locations, so they're not doing this, same thing all the time, whether that's a fence, whether that's a surrender position, whether that's, standing there looking at your damn phone, whatever. So they understand that that's what the hands need to do. And then one of the other things I will do is what we call a busy hands drill is I'll have them put something in their hands so that they've got to get rid of that. And that's based on some stuff that, they did at the NTI years ago. So.
How many people are reluctant to drop that stuff in their hands?
Very few in a class, but Skip Gokenauer ran the NTI for 20 years, and I've talked to him personally at the TAC conference, and he's told stories about how, the NTI was basically a small village. They had about 60 role players in the village, and you had you showed up at your time to go in, and you were issued basically a to-do list, and you had to go, pick stuff up from the dry cleaners, go to the bank, etc. And at some point in time, you might, get accosted and get into a gunfight. And people, once that started happening, if they had something in their hand, they would not let go of it. So that's kind of why I'm doing that in the class, is to get them used to, if there's something in my hands, get rid of it and get those life-saving tools out and put them to use. So,
makes sense. So for a wrap-up question, Scott, let's go to you, and then we'll kick it over to Spencer. Scott, what is something that I can do, a drill that I could do, be it dry fire or live fire? What's a drill that you would recommend that I start practicing to improve my my skills getting that gun from appendix out and into the fight?
Sure. So before you start with the drill, you need to watch some of Spencer's stuff. Spencer, do you have a YouTube channel? You do, but you don't post to it a lot, right?
Yeah,
do you?
YouTube channel. There's some stuff out there on
but
it.
Mostly Facebook, right?
Mostly.
Watch like Spencer's old videos on his Facebook channel of him dry firing. That's a great way to get started. To kind of go back to the old subject, or about the draw, I like a high thoracic just because I can punch, elbow, grab my gun from that position. If you're so inclined to check out that stuff, you got my stuff. But the one thing I will tell you is know why you draw the way you currently are to its micro detail. Is your hand going to the same place to clear your cover garment? Is your hand finding an index point to guide itself to the proper placement on the gun, wherever your master grip looks like, right? Spencer has a slightly different one technique than I do. It works for him. Mine works for me. The metrics are the same, right? And break everything down to the point where you marry. Spencer talked about Mike Seeklander's Judy chop, which I think is a Oklahoman version of a judo chop. I think that's where it comes from. I'm not sure. Whatever, right?
You gotten Dave's too?
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, but know everything and why you do everything, and then videotape yourself, right? And eliminate any useless frenetic motion that you don't need, right? For example, what I see all the time is on the draw, right? Regardless of what position they are, people think they have to do this, right? Because we're alphas, right? And we like to do work. So if a little work, actually I don't want to hit my cord here. If a little work is good, a lot of work must be better. That is absolutely not the case with the draw, right? So be honest with yourself. Know why you do everything. If there's useless motion in there that you don't know why you're doing it, eliminate it. Speed is the economy of motion, right? If you grasp those things, and maybe you don't know why you do certain things, and you need someone like Spencer to tell you it's okay not to do those things, right? It's okay not to. Actually, I'm not going to get in trouble. I'm going to get in trouble if I say things, but it's okay not to do a squat into Kung Fu Turtle. It's okay not to do those things, right? And Spencer will show you how to do those things.
And to back up what Scott said, just a second, because he's absolutely right. Or to add to that, one of the things I like to do, and I still do, I recommend for kind of that newer shooter that's trying to build skill, draw in front of the mirror. Then you've got instant feedback of what you really do. You can start cutting out that extra.
Yeah, I like videotaping myself with a camera or a smartphone, right? Setting it to a timer, uploading it to YouTube, put it on unlisted so your friends can't mock you, right? And then slow it down to the 25% so that if you're really going on the B of the beep, not the P, right? Because the beep is 0.3. And when you slow it down, this little thing looks like this big thing. And video speaks to the soul because it's you in your home, in your safe area. It's your timer, it's your camera. There is no escape. That goofiness belongs to you, right? And for some reason, man, you get rid of it just like that.
That's
nice.
great.
That makes sense. Spencer, you have anything else for our listeners and viewers?
Kind of my passion, and I think Scott will agree when I talk about holsters. Obviously we have a holster company, but I am way more concerned with you finding the right holster than you buying a holster from me. And that may seem or sound wrong kind of in this day and age, but you know, that's just who I am. I have other holster manufacturers linked on our website. So, you know, if we don't make the right gear for you, or we don't make the gear for you at all, you know, give you a pretty good spot to go looking for that. You know, beyond that, it's finding a way to carry your gun. You know, we had a shooting here in Oklahoma City that you guys may be aware of here. It's been 2 or 3 weeks ago, or a month ago now, where, you know, a crazy guy shows up at a restaurant and just starts shooting into the restaurant. He was a licensed security guard, so he literally had on ear and eye pro when this started. And the two guys that actually did something about it had to run out to their cars and get their guns out of their trunks. I don't want that to be you, no matter who you are. I'm speaking to everybody. Find a way to carry a gun comfortably, and more importantly, you know, like I said earlier, learn how to live with it. So that would be the thing that I would leave everybody with.
Great advice.
And train, for God's sake. Go get training. There's so many good trainers out there anymore. There's like literally no reason for you not to find decent training where you're at.
Yep.
Love it. Scott, what about you, man? Any parting advice for our listeners? Do you have anything else for them?
Yeah, I would, you know, and I think I told Spencer this. I'm not sure. I meant to if I didn't, bro. So there are instructors out there that you're just turning money into expensive noise, and you're touching or experiencing whatever Ranger, SEAL, Delta, MARSOC magic that they have, right? But you're not really learning anything, and it just becomes, you know, a ballistic parade. Spencer's class, along with some other people that I mentioned, is a outstanding introduction to the journey of becoming a craftsman with your firearm, right? And what I mean by that is you are thinking about everything from the clothes you wear to the pants you wear to the belt you have to your holster to where it rides, and you are culminating all that into drills which perform that can be measured by metrics, okay? Because you've decided to carry a gun. That's awesome, right? And we always say the cliche, it's not a talisman, right? But it is irresponsible to suck with your gun, okay? If you suck with your gun and I'm there, please just go. I'll take care of the problem, if that makes sense, right? Just having it is not going to solve the problem. So I would invite everybody to become a craftsman with their firearm, get better, seek out instructors like Spencer, and learn how to become a craftsman through his applied techniques. Hopefully that makes sense.
It does. I love that. It's irresponsible to suck with your gun. That might become one of my
Hashtag
stolen phrases.
Hey,
yes.
if you make a big, well, I guess it couldn't be a patch. It'd have to be like a chest plate because it's so long.
There's a
Right?
Yes. Per Scott Jedi, it is irresponsible to suck with your gun. Judson, what do you have for our viewers, man?
You know what? For those of you guys that know me out there, you know that I live in Durango, Colorado, and we've been battling the 416 fire here for about the last 3 weeks now, and it's grown to 35,000 acres. So I don't have any advice for our listeners. I have a request for our listeners. Just please keep our firefighters in your thoughts and prayers. We had over 1,000 people from across the country, literally from Georgia, Virginia, California, all across the country that traveled to Durango to help us battle this blaze. And they fought the shit out of this fire. I mean, I drove up 550 the other day, and there are literally subdivisions that have a 360-degree burn around them, and not one structure was lost. So I want to thank our firefighters and first responders out there for saving our town of Durango and saving all the structures just north of us. I mean, it's literally a couple of miles that way from me right now.
Wow.
It's still burning, but it's burning in the wilderness area now, so they're kind of just letting it do its thing. So that's my parting thoughts, is just keep our first responders and firefighters, law enforcement, military, all the FBI agents, the ICE, all those guys in your thoughts and prayers.
Awesome. You guys can find more of Spencer Keeper at keepersconcealment.com and Scott at, is it modernsamuraiproject.com?
Yep.
Awesome. And be sure, same names for Facebook and YouTube and all that stuff, I'd imagine. Is that correct, guys?
Mm-hmm.
Be sure you check those guys out. Subscribe to this channel. That way you don't miss our next After Action project. We definitely appreciate y'all jumping on and spending your time with us. And we will see y'all next week.